All right, I'm coming to you live and direct this morning from the Living Hope Neighborhood Church gymnasium. I just went for a long walk outside and now I'm walking in the gym. I guess you could call this It's Okay to Not Be Okay Part 2. But something that the Lord has been reminding me of this morning is that for God's people, there's not only room for despair, discouragement, death, grief, hurt, pain, and hope, resting in God's love, experiencing His peace in the midst of it. There's not only room for that, but oftentimes God allows His people to go through both and to know both experientially. So you think of the book of Lamentations, which is a whole book of lament. God's people are in exile, they're away from home, and they are not in a good place. If you read Lamentations chapter 3, the beginning verses, there's death, there's despair, there's darkness. They're in the midst of some deep waters. But then we get to those familiar verses starting in verse 21, where it says, "But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. That the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, that His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." Those verses come in the context of lament and despair. So experientially, it's like parallel tracks. This is really hard what we're going through, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. And I've been thinking, this is Holy Week. On Friday, we'll remember the cross. And I was thinking, for Jesus' disciples, for His people at that time, that was a really difficult day. Obviously, it was excruciating for Jesus, but for His people, they felt hopeless, they felt bewildered, they felt alone, they were grieving. They wondered what God was up to. They may have felt even abandoned by God. And yet there was also Sunday coming. Resurrection was coming. God was in the midst, working out all things together for good. And ultimately, Jesus' death would lead to His resurrection. And so, even on Holy Week, we see that there's room for both pain and grief and suffering, as well as resurrection hope that can't be taken away. So if you're experiencing both this week, God is with us in the midst of it. And I'm grateful this week that there's both Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, that Jesus is a man of sorrows who understands the suffering and grief and pain that we're going through. But Jesus also died on the cross and conquered death, which means we have hope no matter what. There's always resurrection hope for the believer. Hope you guys are having a good week. Love you guys.